My name is Mark. I'm in the group Oaks and Meadows along with Shael, Reshna, and Hal. We were given the challenge to increase the density within Winter Park without harming the historic buildings and neighborhoods that give Winter Park its community character. Originally, when Winter Park was founded, it was intended to be a winter getaway for wealthy white folks during the colder months of the year. And it was founded in 1881 by Loring Chase, and he originally purchased 600 acres of land for only $13,000. And quickly, in just 4 years, the population grew to 600. And it was during that time, 1885, that it was decided Winter Park would be the home of the first four-year college in Florida, Bowman's College. And additionally, during this time, there was a lot of segregation in the city. And after the construction of the railroad, that was the defining line that separated the African Americans, which were the main workforce constructing the city. It separated them. They were forced to live on the west side of the train tracks, and the wealthy whites lived on the east side. And still today, after more than 100 years, you can still see strong segregation in the city. Let's see. Okay, so today the population stands at just about 30,000, and there's a prediction that in the next 13, 14 years, the population will increase about 5,000. Okay.
So this is the RGIS data we gathered, the population density of the area. So as you mentioned, we have the Sunrail, and on the east side of the Sunrail, we have like most of the African American community, which you can see in the blue, and the green is the white community. And from the map, you can also see like the diversity in the spread of people. Like we have a commercial wing here, that's why there's less of people there. So that's the map showing the unit density, the occupied and the vacant areas. So I'll just give a small background about the city. So between 2000 and 2012 alone, the city's population has increased up to 22%. That's about 28,920 people. So the well-educated workforce appears to have higher wages, and that created like great income levels for Winter Park area than Orange County and the whole of whole of Florida. And but still there's like unemployment in the Winter Park area, and that's below the state average level. Some of the threats and weaknesses of the site is there's like limited land development opportunities. So this is the land. So and there's a regional perception that Winter Park is a very nice place to live, but it's not a very nice place to do business in. And there's like a lack of economic vision. The city is not capitalizing the ability to grow more attraction places to bring in people into the Winter Park area. And there's an unhealthy regional economy where there's high unemployment and low national tourism numbers. So some of the questions that we were trying to find out was how will the park leverage its many assets to maintain and strengthen this, and how it can keep attracting people, and some of the solutions we'll explain in the later slides. But we are trying to increase the floating population and grow tax base, create an enhanced community character, and make more gathering spaces. So what we have on this side of the railway is called the Park Avenue, and this side we have the Moss Boulevard and the Orlando 1972 running along the major spine. So this is like a very attractive spot in Orlando, we can say, but this side is rather down in that way. So we are trying to renovate this area and increase the bicycle and pedestrian transit connections, therefore drawing in new markets, creating new jobs. And we're going to target on some of the objects that hindering the growth. So if you look at the map here, we can see it's like more of commercial, but a lot of parking spaces, and this wing is entirely office buildings. So we are trying to kind of rezone the area and provide enough housing also for the upcoming workforce. So that's the zoning map. From here you can see everything marked in red is like the commercial, and this wing is mostly on the periphery we have the office, and towards the interior, like towards this end and this end, we have most of unit density housing. So this is the zoning that we did, connecting different nodes in the site. So at that end, there's a lake, that's the Lake Killarney. So there's like a major development going on there. We're trying to spread it towards either side. Here we have a park that was earlier a sinkhole, and now it's transformed into a nice big park. And the second is like the Park Avenue, which I told before. And this is another waterfront, and that's the commercial area which we can see right over here. So we're trying to connect that nodes, and this Orlando Avenue and the Morse, they act as major spines, and we're going to develop the spines and then slowly attract more people in, and therefore that spreads in, and we can take some redevelopment on the unit housing also. So this is the map showing the use of automobiles. It's car, bicycles, and pedestrians. So again, we can see that on this side of the sun rail, there's more of cars used, which we're trying to reduce eventually in our plan. And yeah, that's how the zoning will look when we have more of bicycles and pedestrians on the side. Okay. So this is like a network map showing the interaction levels in different roads. That again will be explained in the master plan. So yeah, that's like the Orlando Avenue, this one. The traffic level is around 29,000 when compared to this one, which is just 7,400. And here again, the speed of the cars is like limited with the use of brick paved pathways and all. So, and that's like a 0.8 miles. So from this stretch to this stretch, it's just 0.8 miles, like hardly a mile. So it's just everybody can walk in that. Yeah, so that's the area view of the site where we are trying to renovate. You can see that most of the area, 60% of surface parking, which we're trying to eliminate eventually. So, I'll be explaining on that.
Winter Park, what is portrayed now is what it was portrayed in the past, that the densification of people and structures are very low. So what the characteristics of the Winter Park Village and the other parts of the city are not compatible for the future development in that part. The city right now, it's oriented more into the automobile, and what we want to do is to be more pedestrian friendly. The senior living that is on the top right hand corner, and on the bottom that is the Paseo Apartments. Those two, they're trying to densify the location by increasing population in that area. Yes. In this map right here, what it shows is the percentage between structure and land. And what we found out was that the percentage in that area is from 20 to 40% use of the land, and the rest it's surface parking. And what we were discussing is that it's not they're not utilizing the land correctly, and what we are planning to do is densify those locations. In here, what we're showing is we're trying to find the correct connection between the Winter Park, the downtown, Winter Park downtown, and the 1792 that is Orlando Avenue, that connection, and we saw different scales between each side, and in the lighter, it's like in the lighter, say the lighter lines, it shows the different scales. You can see right there the different scales of what is right now and what we want to do. And what we want to do is increase the scale and increase the population. And here, this one right here, that's in 1792. That's Orlando Avenue, and you can we were just trying to figure out the scale, how it was, and how we want to be, and you can see the different scales on each side. And what we want to do is connect those two areas. That is here, this part, and this part right here. These two locations, and be more pedestrian friendly in those two places.
All right, this is our master plan and how we propose to increase density within Winter Park. I'll start up here in this area, which is currently the Winter Park Village, right here. And as you can see in this aerial view, that there's a lot of surface parking that's not being utilized, and you can see in our master plan what we're proposing is to eliminate the surface parking altogether and replace it with these 3 parking garages here, here, and here. And another problem that we found in the site is that there's no place for public gathering. So we're proposing many courtyards where people can gather and socialize there, because right now it's just busy parking lot, as you can see in that view. Also, we're going to make it more pedestrian friendly. There are streets and paths where the vehicles can travel through pretty much any direction, but we're going to close off some of those paths and just have pedestrian only, vehicle-free paths that connect between the buildings. But we're going to keep some of these as service vehicle paths, so some of the service vehicles can get in there, or taxi cabs. To increase the density further, we're adding offices along the north side. The purple areas represent mixed use, so we're going to have commercial on the first floor and residential up above. And we're proposing that there's market rate housing and affordable housing within the site, within these purple areas, just a mix between. Moving further south, one of the goals we had was having a connection from the village to the park down below. Currently, if you want to travel from the village, you would have to take one of the side streets, which is not very enjoyable on foot. So we're proposing 2 pedestrian paths that go straight down the middle, the bicycle path and walking path. The red areas are our proposed additional commercial. Some of them include surface parking, just for the convenience of the people living within Winter Park. They can travel here by car and have a place to park. These green spaces, these green squares, are current office buildings. We're proposing to reuse them and make them into restaurants, so that this will be a large food court area where the residents can come and eat. And you can see over here, this is a large, like really large parking lot, surface parking. We're going to eliminate that and put another parking garage and add in more office space, because currently these are offices. So we're going to add additional offices with the parking garage, and they're even going to have their own private courtyard, this office space area. Let's see. Down below, there's a proposed library that's going to be built right around in this area. And in addition to that, to sort of activate this northern edge of the park, we're proposing street vendors, or some type of vendors, and interactive art to be constructed there. Because right now it's just grass and it's a dead zone, there's nothing going on. So we want to liven up that area. And then moving further south, these buildings right here in the yellow, for example, this large one, you can see here, that's a bowling alley, and all of the ones actually in yellow are closed. They're run-down places, and we're proposing just to refurbish them and reuse them so that, you know, the residents and the people living here could have use for that bowling alley again. Let's see. And then in these slides, or this slide, you can see the scale of things, what we're proposing in 3D. Okay.
Okay, this map shows the existing sidewalks, so you can see the sidewalk coverage in our site is very high. However, most of sidewalks are simply raised and lacking the buffer. So we propose to renovate the sidewalks along the commercial buildings we proposed and make them more walkable. So this map shows the trolley bus we propose, because in our site the most bus arrive every 1 hour. So on the left is the only one bus line really available. So the trolley bus route will bring the Winter Park high efficiency transit in a more environment friendly way. This is the map shows the proposed bike path on the base of the existing bike path. So the blue one is the existing bike path, and the purple is the proposed bike path. So you want to use these bike lines to connect the important nodes in our site. This is the precedence of Seattle's new Broadway bike lanes. It shows the dramatical change in the road, and it shows some interesting detail about the creative separation equipment and the independent bike signal. And this is the most absolute, the most important connection from our side to somewhere. So you can see it takes about 60 minutes by walk and 5 minutes by bike and 3 minutes by car. So to add the new bike lanes here will not reduce the transit efficiency and make them commute more faster than walk. So here this shows how we build the bike lanes. We removed the original battery in the middle of the road and create two-way bike lanes, and with the new buffer to separate them from the vehicle lines. Here are some ideas of the intersections. We want to use the corner refuge island for stop bar or set by bicycle crossings to make the road more bicyclist friendly and pedestrian friendly. Here are some rendering shows the views of bike lanes. Okay, here's the food vendors and the interactive sculptures to active the street side of the park. Here is because the island now is like an island here. So we want to create the connections between the park and the surrounding area and to create more communication and interaction. So we propose to build the overhead bike lane on the park, and so the independent circulation will make this park both walkable and bicyclist friendly. Okay, in the end we have an animation shows our project.
Thank you.
Okay.
I don't know this area very well, but you mentioned Rollins College was nearby. And many times in terms of sort of revitalization of areas, especially with densification,
Yes.
college students are sort of a good attractor to that. And have you made some kind of connection of bringing that demographic in?
At college?
Yeah. I don't know, I mean, you mentioned that it was in this area.
Yes,
Okay.
it's right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that something that you can see in terms of, oftentimes, because those are real intense users of downtown areas, but they don't have to be right there. I was at Phoenix and the university put one of the, put part of the college downtown Phoenix to help revitalize that downtown area. So I'm wondering if you've made some kind of a connection, not just to the transit, but also other parts of of that larger community that would wanna go to those restaurants and whatever. Because it seems like it's just straight to the, sunrail.
I actually had a question that maybe feeds into that a little bit, because my question was, so why would you pick Morse Avenue to develop as your core instead of Fairbanks, which does tie with the college, for example? And it also has all these little mom and pop restaurants and stuff along it, as opposed to office buildings as infrastructure to deal with. So I'm curious about I mean, other than, I guess maybe it makes for a symmetrical thing or whatever, but like, why choose this road as opposed to some of the other ones that are there as the core of your project?
Like, when we looked at the site, we were like initially across a Denning Drive that's just parallel to Orlando Avenue. So what we found is we wanted to connect that area to the downtown. So we felt that area needs more development, so we can bring in people from this, and that spreads along Orlando Avenue. So that's why we picked that site, because we felt that we could do something over there. Something was lacking there, and that's how we picked that spot. So, and then we moved to the parallel roads in the second phase, or
Even like historically speaking, Morse Avenue, back in I think 1956, the train station actually was in the middle, like right on Morse Avenue, and the mayor had decided to move it south to open up that connection between the east and the west.
And we have like a lot of historical buildings down there, so
Down where?
near the Rollins College, so.
Rollins College is a
all this
historical.
marked in yellow is
No, I
like the
understand,
historical
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
But to me, that seems like, if you're going to also take this area and, look at it intensified, to try to, instead of having these two islands, having some kind of connection between them, so that they, and then see things that sort of trickle down from that. So it seems, and it's not to say that I think there's some real worth of having that connection to the, light rail station for people who, work outside this area. But, it just right now, it just seems like that there's two islands, and it's not capitalizing upon population groups that can really lead to intensification. And I know one of the things that you mentioned in the background was the differences in the racial demography historically and today, and I think that's important. And it's so striking to see it on this map just by looking at green space and stuff. But there's other demographic groups too that will also influence the types of usage of those parks, the types of bicycle routes and things like that. And I don't get a sense of that, of what you're, and I know you're still in the middle of the project, but of thinking of who's using that space and how they're gonna use that space, and where that comes from in the city. I know part of this is thinking that people might be moving in from the coast. So who would those people be, and what types of, you have multimodal, but do you have it in the proportion of different needs that people will be using, the trolley versus the bicycle? Just some things to think about when you do it, but the thing that's most glaring to me is having these then two islands, sort of intensive use, and sort of a disconnect between them right now.
In your presentation, you had mentioned that you want to increase density. And I guess, could you clarify in concept when you say density, like density of what?
Like physical density of the space, because right now,
What does that
um,
mean?
well, if you see a lot of the land being used for surface parking or for landscaping, and just a lot of smaller buildings placed throughout the space, we can construct a larger building that will house more people and be utilized better for the amount of land it's taking up.
So by providing more commercial, we can increase the employment rates in the
Okay,
area.
so density has several attributes possibly? And you mentioned commercial, and you're talking about like, I don't know, what, buildable area or something? I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, is it, so I guess my question is, if it's about density, can that be qualified somehow? That it's about density of 5 or 6 things maybe? If you understand what I'm saying? I mean, because I think it's important to your scheme, right?
Yeah.
But the way you were using the word, it was like you were gonna increase density, but like it wasn't necessarily clear of what. So right now on 1792 and on Fairbanks, according to the map you put up, there's a density of automobile traffic.
I see what
Relative
you're
to other
saying.
streets. I mean, you wanna increase that, for example, or,
Okay.
I mean,
Like density of the structures or something like that, is that right?
well, I guess, from what I heard about your project, you wanna increase the density of residents with different social, economic, and occupational types of
That's correct.
access, right?
Yes.
You want to increase the density of pedestrian usages and walkability. You'd like to increase the density of commercial services so that people are not getting in their car and driving to mall or whatever that they're gonna use. I mean,
So be more specific.
well, so, yeah, because density is a big idea for your project, and I mean, I think it had, I mean, the way you described it, it has many attributes, and I just think if you clarify those, that it gives you then kind of a little more precision with which you can describe your project. Because I think it's very important to the way you talk about it. I enjoy the project, I know this area pretty well. I go to work here rather often with a number of people that in this immediate area. So I think it's a very interesting proposal. We've done a proposal, I think in your shopping mall, this place up here, that building in the back, is that like apartments now?
Oh,
Is that the
the new
shopping
one?
mall that has the apartments?
Oh,
It's
that's,
Winter Park Village, yes.
Yeah.
That's Winter Park Village, that's up there.
Yeah, that's in the middle of your thing,
That's right.
right? Yeah, so we had done a design proposal with Olson Kundig out of Seattle to actually put like multi-million-dollar condos on the roof of that back in, before the big residential crash. So it's a cool, I mean, anyway, so I mean, you know, in other words, there've been other people looking at the idea of bringing dense residential to this area for quite a while, so, I mean, there's an element of reality with it. So I enjoy the overall scheme, but I would encourage about the basic concepts to be a little more precise. One of the things that's interesting about this area, you might, with your diagrams and your site plan, I think somehow when you look at this, that I don't know that you can ignore Fairbanks. I mean, I think somehow, I mean, you know, I mean, if there's a way that Winter Park connects with other places, it's with Fairbanks and it's with Main Street in 1792. So I mean, at some point, I think at least somehow there ought to maybe be some insertions, and maybe this is relative to your comment as to whether everything, like all your interventions right now are all like within a 3-block area. And so are there some future ones that maybe start to become elements that
Start spreading out
yeah,
into other
bring the
locations.
transition between the two areas? Because the other question, I guess, that I had at the outset in terms of concept, so you decided to start on 1792 because there was open land there, but you've already got a nice mixed-use district in downtown Winter Park, so I guess the other logic is, well, why not start at Winter Park and move west, for example?
You mean start in the downtown area, the historic area?
Start on the west side of the park by the rail station and move west, rather than starting to the west and moving east.
So like what we start from west, we have like on the Morse Avenue, we have a lot of office building, which is like the multi-million office building, which cannot be like, moved from there in any ways. And behind that is like the, single house residences, which have been there for a while, so it's difficult even to tear them down. So initially we increased the, density on the barren land there, and then that slowly increases the commercial, increases the employment, brings in people, and then that's how we can spread, through the, so that's like the, zone where we are trying to spread it. So that's how we can, bring in more. We started from here, we found it's like a bit difficult maybe. So because we have already things going on there, which is like well established just around the periphery of Moss Avenue.
Yeah.
So,
But that is a type of development. I mean, what you've taken is like this one, major area and redevelop that whole area. But there is that incremental, infill area, and that's an approach to development also. That sort of follows on your statement that there are some real tightly established areas already. And so why not sort of fill in where there isn't to grow those areas too. So I don't know if your argument stands. It's sort of, you have to justify why this sort of swath of large-scale redevelopment versus sort of an incremental growing of density in an area that shows some vitality to it, but needs to grow out from that. So those are just two different approaches for that. Another one question again, because I don't know this area, is this lake over here, but everybody likes beautiful view or a park that would go down to water. Why is that not connected somehow with your scheme?
Which area?
This lake right here, that's only a few blocks away.
oh yeah, there's like a new development already there.
Uh-huh.
So, but we are like proposing, so that's like, we have a new development here, and we are trying to.
Oh, that's part of yours?
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay.
so that's,
Okay.
we are trying to move that.
Is that like a public access area that people can sort
Yes,
of?
it's
Okay.
public
Okay.
access.
Thank you.
So I think the strengths of your project are, the analysis that you showed, I think is very convincing in terms of the need to really address the site. So, at the beginning of the project, which I assume took you a little bit of time to kind of get organized, seems to be pretty solid and very well done. The overall thinking about the kinds of, excuse me, urban texture to the program uses and to the way they're distributed on the site, I think also is a strength to your project, with the way you've decided to locate perhaps, and the occupancies that you've chosen, and the way you've chosen to, at least at the large scale, develop it. It would be helpful actually, and I appreciate what you had shown in the PowerPoint, but it's a little hard to refer to some of the character sketches of the bikeway and those kinds of things without necessarily having them to be able to talk to a little bit. So hopefully at the final you'll maybe print out some of those images that are important to your concept to be able to show and refer to in discussion, and at least include in like, I don't know if you can put together a booklet or something about this at some point, but I think those are fairly important. One of the things that struck me about your fly-through at this point is that you talk about mixed-use neighborhoods, and you talk about public gathering spaces, and you talk about pedestrian areas, but the character of what you showed in the fly-through, and actually the way that it's shown in the site plan, all these spaces are actually very homogeneous. So there's a row of trees, and there's a sidewalk, and I guess, so if I'm gonna open up my cafe, I didn't see a place where I could actually maybe pop back with the facade of my building and have dining on the sidewalk or something. Or maybe that all happens inside, but if I want to advertise for my spaces, maybe I'd like some of that outside as well. So I don't know if within the way you're developing the character of these spaces, right now it's kind of the same type of trees that are around your buildings, and I appreciate that as a general strategy, but when you talk about the way these courtyards are coming, we'd really like to see how the courtyards develop and actually maybe do some of those relate to the streets, or maybe they're a cut through so I can see them, or how do I connect with these activities that you see as important in the program areas. They look fairly similar from one to the other. And, you know, I know you're at a general stage, but so as you take the project further, the question becomes then, you know, maybe one of them is a basketball court, for example, in housing units, one of them is something else. I've got my cafe, I've got my outdoor dining, I have the place where, you know, I make paintings and photographs, and I want to put my stuff out on the street on nice days that people are saying, I mean, to really make it kind of an urbane type of situation. And then just a couple of functional questions about, so when you come in and you put bike lanes in an existing infrastructure and sidewalks, do you actually have enough room to do what you want to do? So, and, you know, you showed the one kind of section going across, and you kind of said you did, but I wasn't sure because you showed like an after, but you didn't show it before.
We had the 70 feet lane.
Right.
Yeah, and we did it accordingly. It was in scale actually with the existing.
Yeah, well, so you talk about all these office buildings and stuff, so is the 70 feet like to the face of the building or to the edge of the sidewalk, or is it to the edge of the curb, or, and, I mean, how do you literally fit this stuff in? You know, when you ride bikes in these areas, I was curious, I was amazed when I saw you said 1792 had a bike lane on it, like, where did it go? That was on one of your maps here, and it said, you know, existing bike lane on I mean, I drive on that road, and I'm imagining like it's like a suicide lane or something.
Yeah, it's
I
like,
don't know.
there is one, but not many people use it, just
Yeah.
because of that, because people are driving through there
Right.
nonstop, so.
So how do you get a bike lane there that's gonna function when you have a road like that? Because it's not like, I mean, I don't
Yes.
know, are you eating in and taking away from the traffic lanes, or I mean, how do you?
That's one of the ideas that we're having, is like taking away one of the car lanes out of it, so we can accommodate that.
Yeah, so that there's actually some real, a legitimate bike lane, with
Yes.
some kind of separation from these people that are going 50 miles an hour down the road between traffic lights or whatever.
Yes.
You know, I mean, 'cause that's quite, I mean, the character of that road is actually difficult to integrate bicycles with. And I was real curious about your interventions, the thing that you showed with the spiral going around the park, where you talked about an elevated bike lane. Like, what is that?
It's more like an elevated space right on top of the lake we have there. So it's just where we can walk and gathering. It's not just bike lanes, but can be used by people to walk around. It's just a structure that comes over the lake.
Which lake is it on? I couldn't tell.
This lake.
Yeah, in the park.
There's a huge lake, and that place is like just grasslands. So we'd like to introduce. There's a public library that's coming up there. So integrated to the public library with like a structure that people can walk over the lake and like a gathering space. We have cafes and all that.
Along the structure.
We haven't done exactly that.
Okay, and is elevated structure, I take an elevator to get to it, or is it
No,
with,
it's just like a ramp.
at, maybe at 1 and 12?
Sorry.
At 1 and 12?
Yes.
So there's some part of it that I can't walk under, or, I mean,
We can talk.
okay, well, so there's a lot
More
to
conceptual.
think
Yeah,
about
more
with this, I mean,
conceptual.
in terms of, you know, this elevated thing. Because it's pretty substantial to get a ramp to go up. I mean, because then when you put an elevated structure, I mean, just in order to maintain view portals of a lake and so on, I mean, this is not at 7'8" or something above grade. I mean, it's up 20, 30 feet, I would assume, so that you have, when, you know, if you're going up 30 feet with the ramp, you've got a long way to go. Like football fields of length of ramp and lanes and stuff, I mean, the scale of that is incredible. So before you get too attached to that, I maybe just do a couple of quick studies to see if maybe you want to do that, or maybe you have some alternate ideas about how to activate that as a space, because I mean, there's just some pragmatics about it that you might find discouraging. But I enjoy the restaurant, enjoy the scheme, enjoy the inclusion of the restaurants, commercial and mixed use. You have all the colors the same on these buildings, so I've got a purple building and I've got an orange, and so on. Is it possible I could have different programs in these? show that? I mean, maybe you need some conceptual elevations or something if you have, that's what I mean, you know, I mean, maybe there's even some places that have residences and the restaurants are mixed use on the roof. For example, you know, have a restaurant or something with an elevated terrace with a garden and green roof and so on. I mean, you know, I mean, if you really begin to think about the potential of some of these spaces, you can make it really very interesting.
Any other comments? Yeah.
I think you guys are getting a lot of good feedback. I agree with all of it. I think the cross grading is a real problem, and you should at least plan some strategy to sort of get that cross grade. You know, I'm interested in the water also, and I'm looking for some unique qualities to this place that maybe you could sort of intensify or expand upon. I see a lot of kind of generic, you know, urban renewal kind of strategies, you know, make it walkable, do the bike path thing, do the, you know, just kind of go down the list. But in those kind of things, in a general kind of framework can probably help, you know, anywhere. But what are the unique qualities of this place in the community? Like the walkable part, I mean, that's a wonderful idea, but in the dead of summer, you know, who's gonna, you know, you gotta make sure that you provide shade, and what makes that unique. I mean, look at this time of year, you know, everybody else is like frozen. We can still like sit outside in an outdoor cafe and have a lunch. So what are those unique, you know, qualities of the atmosphere, the climate and all that we could really kind of, you know, take issue with and really make something part of this place. And that, some of that I think also gets into where the buildings come in and how you program them, and, you know, what is it's one thing to sort of like map out the fabric, but then what is the building's role, right? How do the edges of the buildings respond to the different, you know, types of activities that you want to have on the street? I'm a little concerned about the parking garage, you know, just as a kind of solution to, you know, okay, we want to have the car, and you probably need a car, maybe in Orlando, but we also want to do this walkable thing, so we just throw in some parking garages. I mean, those could be real kind of interesting design opportunities, but they need to be looked at, I think, in a serious way. I just got back from Charleston. You know, they dropped those garages in the city of Charleston to kind of keep people out of the cars and out on the streets. And it all works and everything at a real kind of, you know, functional level, but the garage itself is a real missed opportunity for design, right? Because they're just kind of nasty garages.
Even for accommodating mixed uses, I mean, we've done a lot of garages that
exactly. That's
actually
what
have
I'm-
retail and office, and then they have residence, and then there's
That's where you have to be
garages. I
really,
mean, so even there, I mean,
yeah, I
you
think
look at
creative
it,
with the
it's-
programming, right? It's kind of too singular, right? And probably when you get into the section too, right, you can start programming the section, as well as horizontal. Okay, and I think too, the water, you know, I'm always amazed in Orlando when I come into the airport, there's always like water everywhere, but it's like everybody just kind of turns their back to the water. I don't know, because there's alligators gonna be eating it, or what. I mean, there's a few places where you see like a ski boat or a little dock or something, but you think with all that amenity there, that somehow there could be a way to engage the water, maybe. More interesting.
So I had, sorry about that, I just joined late and I kind of understood the big picture. Okay, so there are 4 pillars of sustainability, right? So one is the social aspect of it, which I think you guys have taken care of that pretty much. The second one is in terms of economic, aspect of it, which you've done. Institutional aspect, yes, you have the public, private, and all those different things. You know, people are able to put in some more effort into this. What about the last one, which is environmental aspect of it, right? So if you look at the building, if you look at the kind of the entire the layout, it looks very interesting. But the thing is, have you thought about the material flows that is going to go into this development? Okay, so you talk about, you know, the payments or cycle, bicycle, all those different things. Have you even thought about the amount of energy that you're going to spend in terms of putting the materials together? I'm talking about embodied energy. I'm talking about even energy that goes into those buildings, right? So when you start designing the buildings and the structure, I want you to think about that aspect of it. That's very crucial because, end of the day, we talk about density. If the induced density of this NTR is going to skyrocket, then pretty much you can't sell. Okay, and typically, using one of the NSA tools, neighborhood sustainability assessment tools like LEED, ND, or BREEAM, or anything, and just like using it as a cookie cutter wouldn't actually help you. Okay, so you need to go much beyond that. So you need to think about that as well. But, excellent work, what I've seen there.
Thank you. I just want to follow up on one of the comments is that it does look a little bit like it could be any place. And yet, when you introduced the project, it had this wonderful, beautiful history about it. And is there some way to carry that history into, whether it's the facades or the configurations or the massing somehow, or even, and not just where it's located, but even that connection, I mean, between the east and the west. And I think, there's some really interesting ways to think about how to make this, like it couldn't do this anyplace else except in Winter Park.
I think I would call that as urban acupuncture. Remember that terminology, right? That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So basically, how does your development differ from the rest of what is the signature for this one?
Right, and I think, as an outsider from Florida, our image of Orlando is like, it just appeared in the 1970s or 80s when Disney came down here. And you tell people, no, there's a history here. And I think, how do you get people to see that? And you have an opportunity to see that in a new place as well.
Thank you. It's a really good critique to take with you, big time. Thank you, guys. We're going to move on to our next cluster. We can shift the chairs this way and actually sit across here. And I think you're going to still use the same location?
That's fine.
Okay. Okay, so you probably want to be here. Stand maybe and move back and forth. Don't be as bashful as standing in front of the projector. Okay, because it really does, you're allowed to stand in front of the projector. Okay?
Yeah, you're in